In my last video, I showed you how I mix up and put together the food that I put into the feeding tube. And this one here, I'm going to show you how I actually put it in the tube. Uh, Before I get to that, I'd like to show you a little more the crazy stuff that the sugar water people, those so-called nutritionists, recommend for actually putting this food in. Take a look at how they suggested you put this stuff in. You could use a pump, which I'm sure works fine for some people, but you're tethered to the darn thing, and I wanted no part of that. So this is what they suggest for bolus feeding, as it's called, or a syringe in more common terms. Look at this guy. He's thinking, please don't spill that stuff on me. That's right. They tell you to pour it into the syringe and let gravity take it in. Well, that probably wouldn't work with real food. Sugar water is thin and probably runs a lot better. So here's what I do. First of all, get all the things together. I use paper cups to put the food in. I found that 9-ounce cups were the most efficient and the most cost effective. And then a plastic fork to stir the food with. And then the syringes. These are 60 milliliter syringes. I use one for the water and the other one for the food. Next, I keep a stack of paper towels on hand for wiping the tip of the syringe and cleaning up any spills or drips. If you don't do that, the tip gets slippery and messy, and so I highly advise you clean it each time you put it in. I cut them into fours too, so it's less weight, and as you'll see, are actually easier to handle that way too. So now that we have all that ready, it's time for the food. So I fill up the cups pretty close to the top and then into the microwave. At first, I'd use my little Harbor Freight temperature gauge, but I soon found out that about 50 to 55 seconds worked pretty well. And then I use the plastic fork to stir the mix for a uniform temperature afterward. Alright, so now I'm ready to start putting the food in. I always start with one syringe full of water to flush everything and to keep the tube clean. That's the easy part. Next, we start putting the food in. I learned something right away trying to get real food down this thing instead of the sugar water. My tube has this little clip valve, and just clicking it open is good enough for the sugar water, but it still restricts the tube some. So what I discovered is that you can kind of clip it over on top of itself and it opens it up all the way, kind of like this. Then after you put the food in, make sure and close the valve back off or the food will come running back out to the end of the tube. So then the last part, that's where those little paper towels come in. So I fold them over a couple times so that they have some absorbency and then wipe the tip of the syringe off. From there, it's just repeat until you have all the food in. So last, I always follow up with at least 1 or 2 syringes of water. You'll also find that real food is not as sticky and that your tube stays a lot cleaner than with that sticky, messy sugar water. That's pretty much it. I've been taking in 3 cups at a time every couple of hours. I've tried a number of recipes, but with most of them, 5 or 6 feedings a day gets me around 2,000 calories plus. The best part is that this is probably the most nutritious diet I've ever taken in my life. I only use whole foods, no preservatives or chemicals at all, and as I pointed out in my last video, you don't taste it, so content is king. If you'd like to look at any of my recipes I've tried, message me and I'll send them over to you. So anyway, God bless you all and happy eating.